I'm Julianne Thon,
And I'm Jennifer Cross.
and today we would like to welcome our guest, Paul Stone King, who is an instructor of the Wim Hof breathing technique. He is also teaches the Oxygen Advantage method. He is a certified yoga instructor, among many other things. And Paul is also a computer engineer at NASA. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be on the show.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming. We were excited about today. So we always ask our guests in the beginning, can you give us sort of a brief rundown on how on earth this came to be? How did you get into breathing technique and why?
So I spent most of my life, yeah, that's fair to say, smoking cigarettes. And I was really heavily addicted to cigarettes. I mean, over a pack a day for over 26 years. And I finally got into a place where I felt safe enough to put it down. And also I did a bunch of habit stacking at the time where it's like I quit smoking, I quit sugar, I quit like a whole bunch of things. And
Oh.
so the idea behind that was if I get stressed, instead of reaching for a cigarette, I could reach for a Snickers bar. Not perfect, but
But better.
yeah, yeah, but a whole lot better. And so I was a couple months out of quitting smoking, and I was listening to a podcaster named Tim Ferriss, and he claimed like his thing is that he's a biohacker, and he's always like doing things to himself so other people don't have to. And if they have benefits, then wonderful. And he had Wim Hof on his podcast, and Wim Hof is a very loud and vocal guy, very passionate. And he
he's,
was
so, he's
saying,
somewhat he's somewhat controversial in certain circles, right?
yeah, I think anytime that you do something brave, or kind of almost like a disruptive force in a good way to anything, there are going to be people that have an abrasive reaction to it.
100%.
So when he was on the podcast, he said, get high in your own supply. And so, being a former smoker that quit not too long ago, I was like, okay, I'm sold if
Mm-hmm.
this works.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, I think he went like, I don't know if it was like 3 or 4 rounds of breath work. And I followed along with it. And man, my mind was definitely in an altered state of consciousness by the time I was done. And all of the stress was just zapped from my body. So I could actually show up authentically. And it was similar to a cigarette high, except for me, when I was smoking, a cigarette high would last maybe an hour. And when I did the breath work, it would last half a day at least,
Wow.
if not the whole day, for the stress relief, for the feeling of belonging in my own life, which was, yeah, very, very
Very
powerful.
important. Very
Yeah, yeah.
important. So, does it help with your degree of alertness as well?
Um, I think so, just because I feel like we are only as alert as we are not distracted or anxious. Um, Physiologically speaking, it kind of probably does the opposite because if you think about fight or flight, rest and digest, your alertness is at its peak when you're stressed out.
Right.
Your
Yes.
visual acuity is better, your hearing is better because you're looking for threats.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like just being in the present moment and embodying the moment, like I feel a lot more aware
Mm-hmm.
versus maybe alert.
Can you tell us, and of course the listeners, what is really the Wim Hof method and oxygen advantage technique, and how are they different from each other?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm going to say all your questions are really good because they are. But the Wim Hof
That's
method, go ahead.
that's good. That hopefully we're doing our job.
The Wim Hof method has three pillars. One is gradual cold exposure. So what you see normally is the sensationalized ice baths, which are really intense and really fun, and it's a great thing to do with a community. Having a bunch of people cheer you on to do a difficult thing and to get used to, like, more comfortable with your discomfort is so powerful. Another pillar of it is the breath work, which is, amazing. And they've done studies on the breath work, like what the actual benefits are. And that was another thing that continued to sell me even more. It's like, oh, you have proof that this is something that's actually beneficial versus you just selling it to me because you're very charismatic, which
Hmm.
I think a lot of people
Happens.
kind of get into that trap.
Right, right.
And
So
then the third,
the breath work is controlled breathing, like hyperventilation.
yeah, hyperventilation is a term that could scare or make people a little bit leery. It is overbreathing, breathing more than you ne necessarily have to at the time. Because when you're seated and in a comfortable position, your breathing can be very, 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 very slow and not much volume because you're not like working out really intently, which is where you'd normally hyperventilate or overbreathe. Um, but the breath work itself is just connected breathing. So when you breathe in, you breathe into the belly, into the chest, fill the entire lungs, and then you just softly let the air go on an exhale. So you're not emptying your lungs, right? You just and then you take the next breath in. And so it's like I always describe it kind of like an ocean. Like the wave comes up from the feet all the way to the head, that's the inhale. And then the exhale is just that soft receding of the water, building up for that next very powerful inhale. But the third pillar is mindset and commitment. So, which totally makes sense for me because you have to commit to yourself to continue doing uncomfortable things that you know are good for you because who doesn't like their comfort zone? I mean, like, it's always the default. It's like, yes, I want to be in bed and watch Netflix and, all these things. But unfortunately, like, they're so detrimental to our health, well-being, mental state. The list goes on and on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, just we've talked about this in on other podcasts, but I have to tell you, there's something about breathing that just reaches so many aspects of spirituality. Of course, the physical aspect of who we are and how we're incarnated in this earth. We have to breathe in order to exist. But from a spiritual standpoint, so many religions, I'm talking about the really, really old religions, much older than Christianity, they all have breathing in some shape or form in terms of enabling the individual to be, number one, to understand the I am, and number two, to feel the connection to God or source or whatever the case may be. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I feel like this is another way that through breathing, we can connect as a community, because I believe that we're not in any way, shape, or form disconnected, but it's the understanding through our breath that our connection is already there. What do you say to that?
So this is part of my path. Where once I was starting to do the Wim Hof method breathing, so I'll be honest with everyone out there, like when I was starting Wim Hof breathing for the first year or two, like it took a while. I thought I was doing it wrong until I finally surrendered that level of overthinking and perfectionism.
Which is common,
But
very common.
yeah, so when I gave that up, I started going deeper into the breath holds. I started going more powerfully into the connected breathing. And it was during the breath holds for me where like spirituality comes in too, where there are chemical processes within the brain. I mean, if someone's, completely not woo, I get it. I have a woo allergy. Like,
Right.
talking about spiritual things until very, very recently was actually something that I was very, very uncomfortable doing, just because I think there's a lot of presumption for a lot of people when it comes to religious or spirituality, right?
Yeah.
Like assuming that you know something you don't really know. And so during the breath hold, it's like I would start seeing color swirl with my eyes closed. I would start seeing and feeling, you know, whatever that meant to me. And I think that it will mean something to everybody that does breath work, like especially deep hyperventilative breath work, where you do become very, very high, for lack of a better word, and you start feeling gratitude and just universal love. So in India, they have the term prana,
Hmm.
which is like
Right.
life force energy,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And I firmly believe that that's a very good way, like you were saying, with the whole community aspect of
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
to connect with other human beings without our walls and our defenses up, which is how we normally greet each other. It's almost like every relationship or every conversation with someone has a tinge of hostility.
Hmm.
And so getting out of your head and going into that space of gratitude and love allows you to put down those walls for the people around you, especially if they breathe with you.
Right.
Yes.
And so some of the most authentic conversations I've ever had with people are after some breath work.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about authenticity on our show as well, and the importance of being authentic in order to achieve what it is that you've come to this earth to do
Hmm.
during this time. So, sort of pushing the spiritual aspect aside for a bit, if you can, right? We're since we're all spiritual beings having a human experience. I don't know how you do that, but for lack of better terminology, how do these breathing techniques contribute to the physical performance and recovery? How would you train an athlete using this method?
So for recovery, that's where the Wim Hof method really shines. Because when you do the breath work itself, it has been shown to increase, um, let me make sure I don't get this word wrong, lactate within the body. So lactate is one of the most biggest misconceptions in any type of exercise ever. There is a belief, still very prevalent belief, that we have lactic acid in the body, and that's what contributes to muscle soreness.
Right.
But the truth behind it is that we don't. Our bodies are too alkaline to actually have lactic acid in them.
Hmm.
There's lactate, which is very, very chemically similar to lactic acid. However, it does the entire opposite of what lactic acid does. It actually improves muscles, like reduces muscle soreness. And it also acts as a alternative energy source when our bodies are in um, lack of oxygen state. And
So
so, go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. Also the ice bath. I mean, every every athlete knows how beneficial ice baths are for recovering with your muscles after a workout.
Yeah.
But what I would also say is the oxygen advantage technique is really where they focus very, very, very deeply on the sports performance, sports recovery, like the entire gamut, and that involves getting your what they call a BOLT score, blood oxygen level test, up above 25 seconds.
Oh.
And what
Hmm.
that is you just inhale normally through your nose, exhale normally through your nose, hold your nose. How long can you comfortably hold your nose before you feel moderate air hunger? And that's what that score is. And so 25 seconds, not hyperventilating or anything, but just normal breathing. You hold your nose on the exhale, you time it, and improving that score, like retraining the breath, is phenomenally wonderful for athletes because the point of exhaustion is always what causes them to perform less. So when they gas out, and mouth breathing is the quickest, most sure way to get there.
Yeah.
And so they really stress nasal breathing and breathing less than you have to.
I was just gonna say, so it's like breathing control and CO2 tolerance.
Mhm.
So this sounds
Okay.
like it would be, as a result, sounds like this would be something that would be useful for divers, ocean divers. Is that the case?
Yes, they do a very similar thing. So ocean divers, free divers, they don't hyperventilate before they go into the water. And that is also one very, very big point to make with like the Wim Hof method breathing. Never ever do that in or around water. The reason is because you're decreasing CO2 so much that you don't need to take a breath. And so if
Yeah.
you go underwater, you're triggering something called mammalian dive reflex. The shortest way to describe it is that all mammals have this, and when our head is underwater, our parasympathetic rest and digest system is triggered very, very highly. So the heart rate goes down. We don't need to take a breath normally because we're probably trying to hunt fish or whatever is down there. And if you have lower CO2 level from overbreathing, there's a higher chance that you're going to black out underwater. And
Yeah.
that's always going to be fatal unless you have someone like right there that can save you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, safety is a huge component for all of this for me, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually, because you can very easily push things too far or force things. And that is one thing that I want, anyone trying breath work to just know within every cell of their body, don't force it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Wim Hof is kind of one of those things that it's kind of scary. Like if you when you first start doing it, it really for me when like I was mentioning before, I'm not trained, but I've done it just by myself and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, am I going to pass out, trying to hold doing the breath holds and so on." But it at the same time, it promotes overcoming fear and discomfort and helps like that trickles down into all other aspects of your life. It's really profound,
I,
the health benefits.
yeah, I would absolutely love for you to come to either a breathing class of mine or a workshop just because I don't teach it as aggressively, I think, as you will find maybe on YouTube or the app. For new first-time breathers, I strongly recommend breathing in and out through the nose because you have a lot more control over your breath and your experience. However, if you are finding like almost a catharsis with your comfort around fear and with putting yourself out there because that's like a similar type of thing, right? You get
Yeah.
really anxious, let's say um, you're a public speaker, as an example. That's a really anxiety producing thing. Your breathing's going to go faster. And then the body, in some ways, is kind of dumb as far as, you can mimic a situation that's in your life, like the panicky feeling and the quick
Yes.
chest breathing,
Yes.
and you can induce, like or override really the programming that you have by doing something in a controlled way
Mm,
versus the uncontrolled feelings that you get when you are in an anxiety or high stress situation.
mm, yeah.
So, in terms of breathing, the mechanics of taking this breath in and letting it out, I used to do something years ago that promoted two different types of breathing. One was belly breathing that babies and infants do, and then
Mhm.
there's chest breathing. So, which parts of those have to do with Wim Hof and the advantage?
So with the Wim Hof technique, they have like a wave breath, kind of like the sine wave type thing, right? So it goes from the belly into the chest. So you fill the abdominal area first. Basically, you're just working the diaphragm there. And then you bring that breath into the chest. So like
Okay.
as full of a breath, as full expression as you can get. So it uses both. And sometimes I'll have people like put their hand on their belly, hand on their chest, so they can feel their breath going into the belly, into the chest, and then letting it go, right? And then just getting into that rhythm. Oxygen advantage, belly breathing at rest 100% of the time. So if you're sitting down reading a book, there's no reason whatsoever to get the chest involved in the breathing.
Mhm.
That said, it's dependent on the activity, right? If you're walking, you could probably get away from with just belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing. Um, and if or abdominal breathing if you're jogging or running, the focus is still like having as low volume as you can comfortably get by with. Again, working against that CO2 tolerance, right?
Right.
But if you were sprinting, you know, start with the nose. And, like once you train your nose pretty good, and this is what I found with my yoga teacher training actually, is that you can be in a hot yoga studio, go through a powerful yoga sequence, just breathing through your nose
Mm.
because I mean it's that good at exercise. I know it doesn't
Wow.
really address the chest and belly breathing, but when you're exercising, like first focus on well, it can okay, so it depends, right? So with yoga, there are a lot of poses you'll get into where you can't
Right.
breathe
You
into your
right.
stomach.
You're a bit compromised and yeah, right.
Yeah, and so it's chest breathing, but it is, entirely nasal. And so to kind of wrap this up, you can, once you have proper breath training, you can exert 80 to 90% of your max capacity nose breathing.
Wow.
Do you find that, just from what you just mentioned, Julianne, do you find that there are particular age groups that will be more likely to try these two breathing techniques than other age groups? I mean, like, are the younger generations really getting into it, or are they just kind of like, oh, I don't know about that?
And just before you answer that, I'm assuming that you recommend that some people see a doctor before they make sure they consult their doctor if they have some sort of a pre-diagnosis for heart, lung, something like that, blood pressure.
Yeah, I always will defer to whatever a doctor's guidance is with any patient. There are some contraindications, especially for the Wim Hof method, like pregnancy, epilepsy, Raynaud's type 2,
Hmm.
that are just kind of like hard nose.
Hmm. Right.
But generally speaking, before you introduce any type of physical practice or take any type of supplement, absolutely talk to your doctor first. Just check the bases, be safe.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's good. But answering to what Jennifer just asked. So do you find that it's a younger crowd of individuals?
It's interesting on that aspect because it seems to be like 20 to 30-year olds and then like 50 to 70-year olds.
The people
Yeah.
without kids mostly.
And have the time to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's probably a big part of it.
well, except that's why the 30s aren't, well, the 40s probably aren't in there because they're raising children and they don't have time to do any of it.
And they
So,
would benefit the most.
well,
Yeah,
right, I know.
exactly.
I've been there. That's why I said if you send it and my daughter doesn't use it, I'm totally up for it. Um, but that's interesting to me because I saw something on I was checking the algorithms and on YouTube for some of our shorts that we had put on there. So it'll break itself down if you ask it to in terms of age.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing. It's either not super young, not super young. I'm talking about spiritual shorts that would lend itself more to spirituality.
Yeah.
So what kind of people or individuals are interested in this sort of thing? And it's very much similar to what you said. It's like 20s and 30s, and then there's a gap, and it's like people who are 50s, 60s that in some case 70s that are looking at
Mhm.
these things. So, and I thought that was kind of interesting, and why the gap in the middle there, other than the fact they're raising children.
I mean, I could speculate all day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's fair. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you have found in trying to teach this particular, both of these methods?
Lack of awareness, first and primarily. The Wim Hof method originated in Europe. Same with oxygen advantage. Patrick McEwen, Irish guy, pretty charming. His cool accent, because I'm like, oh, it's an Irish accent. It's very cool. Um, but the origin of oxygen advantage is actually called the Buteyko technique, after a doctor in Russia called Konstantin Buteyko. And he was on such a grand mission to help people that suffer from asthma. Like you can
Ooh,
basically eradicate asthma by breath retraining, which
Wow.
is a very powerful thing to say.
Yes.
Um, and also, like just other illnesses and stuff like that, hypertension and stuff. He was a doctor, so he used these techniques on his patients and found great success. And then Patrick McEwen rebranded it because he wanted more guys to be involved. And so Oxygen Advantage is, like a bit friendlier than like the Buteyko technique, right?
right. Oxygen advantage almost sounds like a sports drink or something. So
Yeah,
I can see how that would appeal to the male gender.
Masculine.
Right.
right next to Red Bull.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there becoming more of an integrative connection between allopathic medicine and these forms of alternative medicine, which they are medicine. They're improving your health and wellness.
Yeah,
Medical
and
doctor.
that's where I think the studies come in, right? So the more things are published, especially in good studies like double-blind, peer-reviewed, that type of thing, there's going to be kind of like almost a synergy in the respect that it achieves from having been vetted. And also, especially, I think the biggest tie-in with like Western medicine is where it goes into trauma, anxiety, depression, and all the mental health maladies that people suffer with. Because it does change the body's chemistry, it changes the brain chemistry. And like I said earlier with the quitting smoking thing, it gave me a sense of peace that lasted most of the day. I don't know if you guys know this, but I have two daughters, 12 and 14. So I need peace.
Yep. Yep. That's enough said. I get it. I get it 100%. And a lot of people out there, I'm sure they sympathize with you and empathize with you as well.
I'll take all the empathy.
Yeah. So how would this work? Say somebody who does a specific kind of meditation. Say somebody's into transcendental meditation.
Hmm.
Somebody is into what is it called? Qigong,
Hmm.
that working specifically with the qi, et cetera, et cetera. How would you be able to incorporate that? Because you're also a yoga instructor. So how would you incorporate this? And especially, particularly with something that is more active meditation, where you are literally manipulating the energy around your body, producing and manipulating.
Well, and this is where it gets to become almost this beautiful synergy of priming your body to be open, to be vulnerable enough to get the most out of meditation, especially transcendental. I mean, you can go to really interesting places with that type of meditation. So I would honestly probably leave oxygen advantage out of it, but really recommend like 4 to 6 rounds of the Wim Hof Method breathing, just so number one, you can get out of your head, get out of the daily stresses that you're dealing with,
So that
and
makes sense.
then
You're doing that first then.
yeah,
Great idea.
thanks.
That's a wonderful idea. So I know you have somewhere that you have to be because you have another engagement, and so we're, believe it or not, we still have like so many questions to
Yes.
ask
Part
you. So
two.
We're
yeah,
not done.
I
Part
think I
two.
think we will have to do a part two because this has just been great, and how interesting and how helpful. This is exactly why we have this show, is to introduce people like you that can make such a big difference out there for individuals and for the
For
human.
anybody,
Right.
from athletes to people that are having issues at work to just people that are retired and relaxing for the rest of their life, hopefully. It's
Right.
amazing. It's really amazing stuff. And the Western world really needs people like you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
much, so much. So what is the name of your business?
So the name of my business is Unleash the Human, like literally taking the leash off of you
Ah, that's
and
funny.
living as vulnerable and authentic as you can with your own boundaries very firmly in place. But everyone has leashes, like a lot of stuff growing up in, you know, different situations. I'm not going to go too deep down my own rabbit hole with that one. Or they could
No,
just
but
find me as,
the analogy that you've used there is perfect because that's how so many of us are feeling right now. Like we're being led around by a leash. There's something that we want to get away from, that we know spiritually, our souls know it's time to cut the leash.
Yeah, or being
yeah,
contained by them.
Right.
Yeah.
and it's not you. And I think that this goes to all aspects of life, including romantic relationships where,
Mm.
you're taking on so much of their energy and you kind of lose yourself into those
Hmm.
situations.
Yeah.
One practice that I have is kind of unrelated to the breath work and stuff like that, but I love taking myself out on dates. Like I'll go to a restaurant that I really want to eat at, sit alone, have a great meal, and kind of like restore that sense of autonomy, which is so valuable because, I think that you draw the partners because of your energy before you start compromising away the energy. And it's really important to reestablish that and go back to that.
Well, we say it all the time on the show. Every podcast, it seems like it comes up that the individual healer must heal themselves before they can really and truly benefit others. It always
Yeah.
starts with the self. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I will be sure to put your contact information down below so that people can reach you and look you up and discover more about who you are, because you have other certifications and other things you do too that I'd love to go into. We just didn't have time. So for those who are watching, please remember to like and subscribe and put into the comments what type of healing modalities that you would like for us to cover on this show, because remember, we are here for you. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on Souls on Tap.